Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the virtual public informational meeting on the Pleasure Creek South Biochar and Iron Enhanced Sand Filter Project. We will start off the meeting with some brief introductions, and then we will launch into a short presentation on the proposed project, and we'll have plenty of time for some questions and answers and any discussion that follows. So with that, my name is Justine Dauphiné, and I am the Water Quality Coordinator for the Coon Creek Watershed District. Here with me tonight is John Janke, the Operations and Maintenance Coordinator. We have partnered with the City of Coon Rapids on this project, and the main city contact will be Mark Hansen, the city engineer, and we have hired the district engineer, Stantec, to handle the design and construction oversight. I wanted to acknowledge a funding source on this project. It would not be possible without a large grant from the Minnesota Clean Water Fund, and the local match is coming from the Coon Creek Watershed District. There is no direct cost to the city, area businesses, or residents. So with that, a little bit of background about the Coon Creek Watershed District for those of you who are unfamiliar with us. What we are is a local special purpose unit of government involved in all things water management, from drainage to flood control to enhancing aquatic habitat and providing recreation for our residents. We do this water management in a 107 square mile area, as shown on this map on the right. It encompasses portions of 7 cities from Ham Lake down to Fridley. You can see a lot of blue lines on this map, and that is an extensive over 100 miles of public ditches and streams that we manage, the largest being Coon Creek, which is our namesake. But today we're going to talk about a couple of these smaller creeks in the southern portion of the district, namely Springbrook and Pleasure Creek is the subject of this project. So zooming in to the south, this is the Pleasure Creek subwatershed. It's relatively small. It's about just under 3 square miles, and it drains portions of southwest Blaine in the southern tip of Coon Rapids. Just to orient you, kind of the middle of this drainage area is where highways 610 and Highway 10 and University Avenue come together. This is a picture of Pleasure Creek itself down by the outlet at the Mississippi River. You can see it's a relatively small creek, but it conveys a lot of water, has a lot of energy, largely because this drainage area is built up, a lot of impervious surfaces, parking lots, streets, buildings, things like that. And one issue that comes in urban systems is water pollution. And Pleasure Creek is no exception. It does not meet federal and state Clean Water Act standards for supporting aquatic life or for supporting safe recreation. And after several studies over the past numerous years and analyses, it is determined that the main problems in Pleasure Creek are excess phosphorus, excess nutrients, and E. coli bacteria in stormwater. So what do we do about that? Managing urban stormwater is complex, and it has a lot of working parts. So here at the Watershed District, we have several programs that deal with stormwater management. We have a robust permitting and watershed development program where we regulate all new development and redevelopment and construction activities, making sure that this work does not degrade water quality or increase flooding. We also educate our residents, trying to promote best practices and behavior change, things like using less fertilizer and irrigating less, properly disposing of your dog waste, sweeping up grass clippings, things like that. We work with our cities on programs such as street sweeping, and we also work with our partners on constructing structural treatment practices, specifically to clean up stormwater, things like stormwater ponds or rain gardens, or something you may not have heard of is a stormwater filter, and that is what we are proposing here tonight in Coon Rapids. And so I'm showing on the right is a picture of one of our recently constructed stormwater filters. This happens to be in the city of Blaine, but it is also in the Pleasure Creek subwatershed in the northern portion. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about how this practice works. So zooming in, this is our Pleasure Creek North filter. What you can't see is off the screen to the right, there's a stormwater pond. And what we do is we draw water from that pond and then into an underground vault, and then we can pump it into one or both of these filter cells. This particular practice, it has two different treatment cells because we wanted to test out two different types of filtration media. So you might notice the different colors. Both of these filters have sand mixed with iron filings. The iron filings is a proven way to bind and reduce that phosphorus nutrient. And then the one on the left that looks a little darker, that is because we are trying out a innovative filter media called biochar. It's a special type of charcoal that had really promising results in the laboratory and in small scale applications, binding and removing E. coli bacteria. So we were able to receive some state grant funding to scale that up and try it full size in Blaine, Minnesota. And this was just recently constructed in 2020. So we now have a year and a half of testing results. And we have found that it is working extremely well. We're seeing over 80% removal of the phosphorus in the E. coli bacteria. So after this water filters through these media, then we can kind of collect it here in the far end, and then it's piped right back into Pleasure Creek, now cleaner. And based on this success, we applied for additional grant funds and we received them to build another filter down in Coon Rapids. So that is what we were specifically going to talk about, which we are calling the Pleasure Creek South filter. So again, here's the map of Pleasure Creek. That north filter I just showed you a picture of is up here in the northern portion. So this kind of treats the water from the upper 1/3 of the drainage area. And the proposed project is down here in Coon Rapids. This is in the commercial area located roughly between Evergreen Boulevard and the railroad. And this will be responsible for treating the middle portion of the drainage area. So very similar to the north filter I just showed you. It's going to be quite large, actually a little bit bigger, over 7,000 square feet. And it too is going to be a pump-based system, and it will have that sand base with biochar and iron added to remove both the bacteria and the phosphorus. So zooming in a little bit on this industrial pond area, this is what it looks like. It's on property owned by the city of Coon Rapids as part of one of their public works yards. There was some underutilized space here that we were able to divert water from this storm pond to the north into a lift station to settle out some solids and spread that water through distribution heads over that filter bed. It percolates through, becoming, treating it, and then it enters a perforated PVC drain tile and is piped into an outlet structure, which we can sample to ensure that this practice is doing what we want and removing these pollutants before it is piped back into the pond. And this is a pond that Pleasure Creek flows right through before going underneath the railroad and into the Mississippi River. So overall, once this thing is constructed, we are hoping to reduce total phosphorus pollution by 19 pounds a year. And that might seem like an abstract number. That's kind of how we quantify pollutant reductions. But what's important is this is just enough to bring Pleasure Creek into compliance with those state and federal standards. We've done several projects and programs in this area, and this is kind of the final one that will bring us in compliance with that state standard for phosphorus. It will also go a long ways in reducing our E. coli bacteria concentrations, but we will still have a ways to go before we can meet the bacteria state standards. As far as timeline, right now we're in the planning and design phase, which we hope to have wrapped up by fall. And we hope to start construction as early as this winter to be wrapped up by early summer. So then we can turn this on and start treating water and monitoring it and making sure it's working as designed. So with that, I would be happy to take any questions. And I also just want to point out, we do have a dedicated web page for this project, as shown at the bottom of the screen, as well as our contact information. So if you're interested in keeping track of progress, we will post updates and pictures and data as those become available. Thank you so much for your time.